Hi, my name is Nicole Zima from Sail Away Group Travel. Next year, Crossing the Lines, M. William Phelps is hosting a 7-day river cruise down the Rhine, departing from Amsterdam. He'll bring you 2 live podcasts, book giveaways, true crime writing and podcasting workshops, narrative trips into cities along the Rhine where infamous serial killer cases occurred, and much more. For more information and to reserve your cabin, go to sailawaygrouptravel.com/truecrime before this once-in-a-lifetime experience sells out.
A student from a Connecticut university fails to show up at her dorm one night as expected. Within a day of not hearing from her, friends and family are forced to consider the worst. Weeks go by. The state police question hundreds of students while a massive search yields no new information. But then all eyes turn toward one particular suspect who has been obsessively stalking, controlling, and threatening the missing woman. And the case takes an unexpected, gruesome turn. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the true crime author of close to 50 books. I've dedicated the past 20 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line. Willimantic, Connecticut is this old textile town undergoing a Romanesque restoration and revival. On Main Street, right in the heart of the city, there's an old-school Dairy Queen ice cream shop where lines of people generally form down the block during the summer months. This entire downtown area of the city has this archaic New England charm to it, with rolling green hills on the outskirts of the city and the Willimantic River cutting a curvy path following right along Main Street. Just down the road from the Dairy Queen is a park where, on any nice day, scores of people hang out. Some enjoy the sun, play cards, read a book, or just mill about, while others are there to sell dope, smoke weed, drink, and cause trouble. In late April 2013, it's just after 11 p.m. 20-year-old Alyssiah Wiley, a student at Eastern Connecticut State University, is seen walking near that Dairy Queen ice cream stand. Part of Eastern's campus is right up the road. Alyssiah is on her way toward the university's high-rise apartment dorms not too far up the road where she has been living for the past 2 years. She had just texted a friend and told her she needed to talk, adding, "I need a drink." It is clear to her friend that something had just happened and Alyssiah had run into some trouble. LeLe, as Alyssiah is called by family and friends, is from West Haven, Connecticut, which is about an hour and 15-minute ride south of the school. She's just about completed her sophomore year at the university with big-time goals ahead of her. Majoring in psychology with a minor in biology, excelling in her studies, there's little doubt in anyone's mind that she'll get into medical school and earn her doctorate. Family and friends all agree that Alyssiah, with her calm and caring demeanor, on top of her empathetic nature, will make an incredible psychologist and has a long career ahead of her, doing what she is destined to do: help people. The Dairy Queen is just a few blocks south of the university campus. But when Alyssiah, LeLe, doesn't make it back to the dorm near the time her friend expects her, and the night passes and she is nowhere to be found the next morning, alarm bells sound immediately. If there is one thing about her, friends later say, Alyssiah is punctual. Alyssiah's mother steps out right away to say, LeLe is not a young lady who would walk away from her life. Moreover, and I think this is important within the earliest moments of this case, LeLe is fervently responsible about letting people know where she is heading and when she will be arriving. For her not to be where she says she'll be says something. LeLe is 5'6", 150 pounds with dark black hair down to her shoulders and brown eyes behind her signature black, thick-frame glasses. As campus police open an investigation, they learn that LeLe used her credit card and cell phone on that day, April 20th. But the electronic trail connected to her life abruptly stops right after that last text she had sent to her friend, talking about wanting to have a drink and a little chat, which is never a good sign when searching for an adult who has given no indication she is depressed or plans on checking out of her life on her own. Within 48 hours, the Connecticut State Police become actively involved. They bring in canines. The Special Missing Persons Unit then issues a silver alert. In Connecticut, a silver alert is usually confined to children under 18 or adults over 65, along with those who have mental health issues. Here, though, in Alyssiah's situation, considering that she falls under none of those guidelines, the state police still feel the alert is warranted because of the circumstances. Every indication from the very earliest stages of Alyssiah's disappearance, including a rocky history she has with one specific male in her life, which I'll get to soon, indicate that the silver alert might help. A week goes by and there is no word from or sign of Alyssiah. Her parents, sister, and other family members step out with the state police and issue a plea for her safe return. I am pleading as a mother who wants her child home. We need your help, Alyssiah's parents say during a press conference. Standing behind her parents are a dozen people who love Alyssiah, all of whom harbor a growing concern that something horrible has happened and she won't be coming home. You can see it on their faces and hear it in their voice. They know. Closing out the press conference, Windham State's Attorney Patricia Froelich says, I know that someone out there knows where Alyssiah is. That is a bold statement you don't often hear in missing person cases this early on. It's coming from a place of knowledge. They know something. The state police offer very little information. They do say that they have recovered a vehicle connected to Alyssiah's case in the town of Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is further south of Alyssiah's hometown, West Haven. They do not at this time come out and say how the car is connected to the case. But look, everyone standing there who knows Alyssiah knows that her boyfriend lives in Bridgeport. Quote, some leads have been developed, the state police spokesperson tells reporters. We are working them. Alyssiah had always been a hard worker. She earned the prestigious Presidential Scholarship to Eastern Connecticut State University. That April, LeLe was preparing for finals, wrapped up entirely in her studies. There is no way she would abandon her dream of med school and take off. This is very clear to everyone involved. Beyond her schoolwork, LeLe is an active member of a young woman's support and mentoring group. Her life has been built around social service and helping people overcome difficulties. One of the bits of information police are focused on is that text, sent on the day and within the time of her disappearance. The fact that she told one of her best friends she was on her way to meet her at the dorm and needed to talk, this is significant because she doesn't show up. Then CCTV footage from around campus begins to tell another story. And the investigation seems to get a boost. In one clip, Alyssiah is seen walking out of Ockham Hall on that Saturday, April 20th, late morning. Then standing and waiting outside the door near the curb before stepping into an unidentified black sedan. This person who picked Alyssiah up is no stranger, investigators can tell by watching her body language in the video. It's clear, Alyssiah knows this person. Interviewing family and friends, the Connecticut State Police learned that LeLe has been dating 30-year-old Jermaine Richards since high school. So they find out what kind of vehicle Richards drives, and it's an exact match to the car seen in the video footage. When the plate numbers come back, they confirm the vehicle is Jermaine Richards. So, Jermaine Richards had picked Alyssiah up on the day she was last seen or heard from by fellow students, family, and friends. And interesting enough, Jermaine had been kind of AWOL since she disappeared. Yes, Jermaine says when they interview him, I picked her up. We drove out to my mother's house, about an hour and a half away, and spent an uneventful day there. Jermaine is a home visiting nurse. He comes across calm and confident during this kind of impromptu interview with police. He maybe even seems concerned for his girlfriend. Investigators ask him, obviously, what they did the rest of the day and into the night. He says they hung around the house, went out to eat. He even stopped at the home of a patient he is currently nursing. Quote, I dropped her off at the Dairy Queen in Willimantic about 11 p.m., and then I drove back to Bridgeport. The information police have at this time lines up with his story, and it should be noted that Jermaine Richards has no criminal history, and those who know him tell police there doesn't seem to be anything suspicious about the guy. He keeps to himself, seems to love Alyssiah, and he goes to work every day. Investigators don't show their cards, but they are curious why Jermaine would drop his girlfriend off downtown, even though it's only 2 blocks from campus, and drive off without making sure she made it back to the dorm safely. Why not have an ice cream with her? Why not wait and drive her onto campus? Anyone half familiar with Willimantic knows that it can be a dangerous environment for a female alone walking at night. On top of that, why hadn't Jermaine Richards shown any interest when Alyssiah was reported missing back on April 20th? While everyone else who knew her seemed to be out searching, knocking on doors, handing out flyers, and calling people, where was Jermaine? And why hadn't he even called Alyssiah's family to ask about the status of the investigation? We'll get into all of that next. Please subscribe to Crossing the Line wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to leave a review of the show, especially on Apple Podcasts. I'm doing this show independently now, free from any corporate or big podcasting media company involvement, which allows me to bring you more of the content you want to hear and have asked me for. This is completely our show. Reviews and subscriptions really help. You are my public relations and social media team now, and without your help, I could not do this. And that support, I must tell you, means everything. It's incredibly humbling. And I want to thank each one of you for listening. We can grow the show together, which will allow me to do even bigger things with it. Remember, you can find new episodes dropping every Wednesday night at 12 a.m. If you go to crossingtheline.biz or mwilliamphelps.com, you can contact me there to suggest cases or just say hello. And look for me across all social media platforms at M. William Phelps. That's the @ symbol and my name, M. William Phelps. Let's take a break here. When I return, I'll get into the first major twist in the state police's investigation as a bit of shocking new evidence points everyone in a new direction. Be right back. Investigators have this funny feeling about Alyssiah's boyfriend, Jermaine Richards. He had sat calmly and told them that he dropped her off at the Dairy Queen at about 11 p.m. This after spending the day and evening with her at his mother's house in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Jermaine's mother, it turns out, confirms most of what he says. The state police then search his car but don't find much of anything other than 4 cell phones, which raise a few red flags. Beyond that, nothing connecting Jermaine to the disappearance of his girlfriend is located. And when state police get hold of some of the cell phone data connected to Jermaine's 4 cell phones, it generally confirms what he has been telling them. So then, where is Alyssiah? After interviewing hundreds of people from the university, the investigation stalls. Likewise, after going through the local sex offender registry and interviewing scores of area scumbags who like to sexually assault women, again, nothing in the form of a lead is uncovered. But then additional hard data from Alyssiah's cell phone comes in, and there is suddenly a shift in the investigation. Phone records often produce the earliest leads for investigators. When you can look at not only where a victim was when she went missing, but what she was writing in texts to friends and family, you begin to develop an unobjective view of where her head was at and what she was going through at what is a crucial stage of the investigation. And mindset can be everything in these types of missing person cases. It can point you in the direction of a suspect or a total 180, the opposite of what anyone expected. In a text to one of her best friends that night, Alyssiah had mentioned she was breaking up with Jermaine. Spending most of her time on campus lately, drifting further away from Jermaine, she was even starting to meet other guys and even insistent upon dumping Jermaine and getting a new man. In that last text she wrote on the night she went missing, Alyssiah told that friend the relationship with Jermaine was done. This was just after 11 p.m. Then another piece of information, pointing investigators in a more specific direction. Talking to that friend of Alyssiah's once again, investigators hear a different version of the night she went missing. Alyssiah wasn't dropped off at the Dairy Queen by Jermaine. She had, in fact, demanded to get out of the vehicle because she and Jermaine were fighting. So this image of dropping her off so she can get an ice cream and then walk to her dorm that Jermaine kind of painted, well, that's now been blown to bits. Then Jermaine's timeline begins to fall apart. Jermaine had told Alyssiah's family he dropped her off at 10 or 10:30 p.m. and that he tried calling her the next day but never got through. Then Alyssiah's grandmother says Jermaine told her that it was like 6 p.m. when he dropped her off. Then they checked to see who Jermaine called that next day as the search for Alyssiah was going on. Turns out, he never called Alyssiah's family. Now, you could say the guy's just simply being cold and uncaring, but the family tells police that in the past, Jermaine would incessantly call them when he couldn't locate Alyssiah. Even after just a few hours of not talking to her, he'd blow up everybody's phone, demand to know where she was at all times. Possessive, the family describes Jermaine. And that's never a word you want to hear in what is beginning to look like was an abusive, controlling relationship, as the pieces for detectives start to come together. One of Alyssiah's other friends steps forward and describes an altercation Alyssiah had told her about recently. It was 4 weeks before she went missing. During this intense argument, Jermaine had, according to Alyssiah, pinned her down on a bed inside the home of a patient he was nursing, put her in a headlock, and cut off her oxygen so she could not breathe. After he finally let her go, she ran out of the house and called her friend, who picked her up right away. Alyssiah was effectively terrified of Jermaine, and he had admitted to her once that he beat a woman in the past. There was also a restraining order against him from his previous girlfriend. Jermaine was volatile and explosive and dangerous, and everyone in Alyssiah's life had been hearing about it for the first time over the course of those final weeks before she went missing. Then the university police are able to get the T-Mobile records from Alyssiah's phone focused on the last time her phone had been used. Alyssiah's phone pinged a tower near North Peters Lane in Shelton, Connecticut, which is about 6 miles from Jermaine's mother's house, where he had told police he and Alyssiah had spent most of that day. Then the complete phone records for those 4 phones the state police recovered from Jermaine's car under a warrant come in. And a new story emerges. At 11:06 on the night Alyssiah goes missing, Jermaine texts her, quote, "I hope you happy, but whatever. You such a little liar. F you, I'm good." By 11:13, Jermaine's phone pings a tower just south of Willimantic, placing a call that lasts 46 minutes. By the end of that call, the phone logs a cell tower in Meriden, Connecticut, which is about an hour from Willimantic, heading in the direction of Bridgeport. For the next hour, the phone logs that same Meriden area. He then ends another 30-minute call while he is in the Milford area, which is further south, still in the direction of where he lives in Bridgeport. So, in other words, he's driving home and he's talking on the phone. Near 1 a.m., he is at home using his phone, Yet over the course of the next several hours, there are lapses of time where no GPS activity is recorded. This worries investigators because a warrant connected to the case reads, quote, "A small distance could have been traveled even though the phone GPS didn't log it." I've seen cases where killers will just put their phone in airplane mode, go do some stuff, come back, and boom. The following day after Alyssiah went missing, April 21st, Jermaine texts Alyssiah only one time, asking her for money he says she owes him. And this text is at 6:52 p.m. So, Alyssiah is missing. Her family is calling Jermaine to let him know they can't find her, and he doesn't call Alyssiah's phone until 6:52 p.m. Strange. On April 30th, 10 days after Alyssiah is last seen or heard from, Jermaine's grandmother speaks to detectives and says the last time she saw Jermaine and Alyssiah was at 2:15 p.m. on that day, April 20th. The grandmother knows the time because she was walking out the door on her way to work. By May 2nd, 2013, investigators find a man who says he and Alyssiah were sleeping together, and that Jermaine had found out about it and threatened to shoot, kill, and beat him. The same man then says he and Alyssiah had been texting on the day she went missing and had made plans to meet up after he got out of work at 11 p.m. Quote, "That was the last contact I received from her. She did not call or come to meet me later that night as we planned." Remember that 46-minute call Jermaine made after allegedly leaving Alyssiah at the Dairy Queen and taking off? Investigators find the person he called, a woman Jermaine had met on a dating app. But when they speak to her, she says that she has never met anyone by the name of Jermaine Richards. The guy she spoke to that night has a different name. They had met on April 16th, 4 days before Alyssiah went missing. During that call on April 20th, she says the man told her he was stuck in traffic and had just left Hartford, not Willimantic, and he was at a birthday party all day long. She says he seemed calm, happy, joking around. She did call him later on that night into the next morning, asking if they could meet, and he said he was too tired, but she did meet him the following night at midnight, April 22nd. So, while everyone is out searching for his longtime girlfriend, Jermaine is out with a woman he met on a dating app 4 days earlier, a woman he had given a fictitious name to. That, my friends, is sketchy shit. By May 8th, it's clear that the state police need to get Jermaine into the station and have a proper chat with him under Miranda caution. They had spoken to an old friend of Jermaine's, and this dude tells them that Jermaine had said during the last week of March that he was having big problems with Alyssiah. Quote, "I'm going to get rid of her. She doesn't know who she is messing with." That's what Jermaine told his friend. The friend asks him how he plans on doing that, to which Jermaine responds, "Trust me, I'm a nurse." When this same guy saw Jermaine about a week after Alyssiah went missing, and her story was all over the local news, he asked Jermaine if he was responsible for her disappearance. And Jermaine, he says, just closed his eyes, put his head down, and shook it from side to side. When he asks him again, Jermaine refuses to answer. I mean, if you weren't involved, wouldn't you just say no? Wouldn't it be easy to just say, "No, man, I didn't do that. I have no idea where she is." But no. Jermaine closes his eyes, puts his head down, and shakes it from side to side like, "I'm fucked." So Jermaine comes into the station to talk to investigators. He brings a woman with him who totally derails any question the state police ask. Jermaine refuses to answer even basic questions, stays 10 minutes, and then he walks out. It's clear that he does not want to cooperate and is hiding something. Why wouldn't a guy want to help find his missing girlfriend? The center of Trumbull, Connecticut is about 8 miles directly north of downtown Bridgeport, the largest city population-wise in Connecticut. And there are sections of Trumbull bordering Bridgeport. Trumbull is an area of the state where you can find dense forest and city life juxtaposed against one another. Quarry Road offers a bit of both, with some industrial buildings lined up and down the street. On one side of Quarry is forest, large oaks and maples, with thick brush and plenty of foliage shielding view from the road. It is here where detectives develop a lead, and that lead puts them in a very thick section of forest on a dead-end part of the road near the back of several commercial properties. The lead is from one of those 4 cell phones found in Germain's vehicle, GPS data. On this day, they have cadaver dogs with them. It's a balmy early spring day, May 17th, just about a month after Alyssiah is last heard from. And the search doesn't take long to yield some rather horrific results. The dogs immediately lock onto human remains, emphasis on the plural. First, they find a left foot, then an ankle. 2 lower leg bones up to the knee, and 2 upper and lower arm sections are found immediately after. There is a preliminary indication that animals had dispersed the remains over an area of about 100 feet. To quote the report from this search, in the area of the decomposing limbs were several pieces of black plastic bag. The medical examiner is called out, and within a few hours of examining the remains, determines that it wasn't the animals that dismembered the body, but the victim's limbs, that same report notes, quote, have been cut by a human with a sharp tool, end quote. Somebody had dismembered this body very carefully. After this gruesome discovery, detectives head over to Jermaine Richards' home. And let me just say this, that ride does not take them long, because from where those human remains are found to Jermaine's house is all of 1.6 miles, a 3-minute drive. Let's take a break here. I'll be right back. I had a saying I used in earlier episodes of Crossing the Line. Some of you might remember it. I want to revisit that here, but also take it a little further. In all murder cases, 2 + 2 always, without exception, equals 4. It's kind of my take on what a serial killer once told me. There are no coincidences in murder. With that said, DNA from the human remains found in the Quarry Road forest are tested against DNA provided by Alyssiah's family, and the lab confirms that the dismembered body is Alyssiah Wiley. Let's call the identification part of the sum one of the 4 I just mentioned. 2 and 3 are the fact that Jermaine lives right down the street from where Alyssiah's remains are found, and his phone data from April 21st at 3 p.m. hit 2 separate towers in the area of Quarry Road where her remains were located. By 3:40 p.m., giving us the 4th part of our sum analogy, that same phone number is pinging off a tower near the house where Jermaine lives. So they have their answer as to why Jermaine wasn't calling concerned about Alyssiah, or not out searching for her with everyone else. He was obviously out in those woods, disposing of her remains after likely spending the morning dismembering her body. Needless to say, an arrest warrant for Jermaine Richards under murder and kidnapping charges is signed by a judge and served by the state police. What's more, the medical examiner says that Alyssiah's body was dismembered with near surgical precision, as if her killer had a keen understanding of anatomy. The road to justice, however, is paved with issues and problems for the prosecution. Within the investigation, no forensic evidence was really recovered. So my 2 + 2 = 4 analogy becomes a metaphor for circumstantial evidence only, because that is all they really have. They can prove Germain was abusive toward Alyssiah. They can place his phone at the scene of the remains and paint Germain as a violent, nasty human being. Yet there is nothing scientifically to place him with a knife in hand, murdering and dismembering her. That's a problem. After 2 separate trials in 2015 and 2016, Germain escapes with hung juries. It doesn't get him off the hook, but it does make the bar for trying him a 3rd time that much higher. Prosecutors are determined. They know he's done this, and they are not going to stop pursuing him until they get a murder conviction. And you know what? Kudos to them. They stuck with this case. They locked on to Germain Richards. They knew he did this. And after 2 mistrials, they go a 3rd round. That's what I like to see. The prosecution regroups and focuses on showing how, over the course of his relationship with Alyssiah, Germain was obsessive and stalkerish, controlling and domineering, following her, watching her, threatening her, and showing up at places she had gone without telling him, implying that he had some type of tracking device on her phone or person. Within that, they hit hard on the incident where Germain choked Alyssiah and threatened to kill her. And when Alyssiah told Germain on the night she went missing that she was finished with him, he believed her and decided to take the old-fashioned murder motive route of, if I can't have you, no one else can. So that is really the thesis of this 3rd trial. They're showing who Germain Richards truly is. There's also the fact that under a forensic search, no blood or DNA from Alyssiah whatsoever is found inside Germain's residence. It's odd that nothing would be found, seeing that she had spent so much time inside the house and was there on the day she disappeared. The supposition being that the place was cleaned thoroughly. With all of that, Germain is found guilty this 3rd time around and sentenced to 60 years, which is considered a life sentence in Connecticut. As the years go by and his appeals are argued, all are denied and his conviction is affirmed. The Connecticut State Supreme Court then refuses to hear his case. Germain Richards will do his 60 years, though, this being Connecticut, I say that with a bit of caution because I have seen murderers from the state in which I live sentenced to life only to be paroled after serving 2/3 of their sentence. I won't even go there here because the rage I feel for these parole boards letting domestic abusers and murderers out will totally derail this episode. This incredible, awful tragedy does not end there, and I do not have the words to express how sorry I am that the following unthinkable horror happens to Alyssiah's family in 2017. Alyssiah Wiley's sister, Shakwaniqua Brody, who became an anti-domestic violence activist after Alyssiah's murder, along with her 9-year-old daughter, Alyssiah's niece, are found murdered, shot to death in the Waterbury, Connecticut apartment where they live. Hard to believe, isn't it? Brody's boyfriend, Anthony Rutherford, is immediately arrested and charged with both homicides. They find the guy with both victims' blood still on his face and the pistol used to murder them in his pocket. Rutherford pleads out his case and ultimately receives 40 years in prison for each murder. The judge, to his credit, calls Rutherford a sociopath with absolutely no conscience. Karina Martin, Alyssiah's mother, who started the group Mothers of Victims Equality with Alyssiah's murdered sister after Alyssiah's death, posted a poignant, heart-wrenching message on the group's webpage after Rutherford's conviction. And I'm going to quote from it here. "The hardest thing for me as a parent to do is continue living after suffering the brutally heinous loss of my baby. So I thought. I know now that the hardest thing is to continue to live on after suffering the brutally heinous loss of 2 more of my babies. These poor people, the losses they have suffered, it just doesn't seem possible to me. If you or someone you know is living in a domestic violence situation and you feel there is no way out, please understand that there is help available. And always remember this. Domestic abusers' behavior never de-escalates. It always escalates. So call the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline and reach out The number is 1-800-799-7233. 1-800-799-7233. Remember, I need your help. Please subscribe to Crossing the Line wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, leave a review of the show, especially on Apple Podcasts. And set your schedule. You can find new episodes dropping every Wednesday at 12 a.m. And log on to crossingtheline.biz or mwilliamphelps.com to contact me and suggest cases or just say hi. And look for me across all social media platforms using the @ symbol and my name, M. William Phelps. Thank you for supporting this show. I am allowed to do it because of you, and that truly means more to me than I can say. As always, please be safe, be aware. Sources for this episode include Alyssiah Wiley's obituary, Connecticut State Police arrest warrant for Jermaine Richards. Connecticut homicide victim's sister was killed 4 years ago. Associated Press, July 21st, 2017, no byline. State of Connecticut versus Jermaine V. Richards appeal documents, March 10th, 2020. Man sentenced 80 years for murder of girlfriend and her daughter, Jill Konopka, NBC Connecticut, September 7, 2018. CTL is produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, written and executive produced by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.